What's going on, everyone? So the Lakers have to be cooking something up. Something has to be going on. What that is, I don't know. I'm going to dive into a couple options here. But the reason I even bring this up is the Lakers, 12 hours ago, literally, it hasn't even been a full 24 hours, signed Vincent Valerio Bodon to a 10-day, Exhibit 10 contract for the training camp, right? No big deal. Typical norm, right? Lakers have signed several guys, Quincy Olivari, you got Kyler, you got, they just signed Jordan Goodwin, who I actually think Jordan Goodwin has a real chance at potentially making the roster if the Lakers pull off a trade, right? So, okay, fine. They signed Valero, no problem. He's a 6'9" guy. He's not going to make the roster. He's not better than a G League guy, but he is long, lengthy, can shoot, right? Play the 2 guard, play the 3, can basically defend 1 through 4. Okay, it makes sense, right? JJ Redick wants a competitive training camp, right? He wants guys, that's why they brought in Goodwin, because he's a guy that was busting up D'Angelo Russell and Austin Reeves, so he's a guy that can just kind of get into the body and kind of make things difficult for them. Plus, he's an excellent rebounder at the guard position, so he can kind of track down balls and help, the Lakers kind of try to figure out and solve one of their biggest problems last year, which was lack of rebounding, right? Okay, cool. I get all that. Well, then, 12 hours later, they already have waivers for Valero, right? Vincent Valero, right? Why? It's really odd. Did you not think that through? Were you just kind of jumping the gun on something? Now, the easy answer is maybe somebody that they didn't think was going to come to their training camp now is. Maybe it's a Markelle Fultz or something like that, right? Maybe they're like, hey, you know what? I'll do a training camp deal, try to see if maybe you pull off a move, you remember me, and I can sign on, right? Same thing I've talked about with Jordan Goodwin, right? I'm not necessarily saying that Jordan Goodwin is going to make the roster right now, but the Lakers have expectations of making a trade at some point. Even if it's just going and getting Giannis Valanciunas, right? Go get Giannis Valanciunas, you're probably trading Gabe Vincent. So Jordan Goodwin makes a ton of sense as that cheap kind of Gabe Vincent replacement, right? You bring in a guy who they're similar in size, have similar skill sets, but he's also a better rebounder. So it's okay, cool. That makes sense, right? So something that I talked about, when you look at Quincy and you look at, Kyler and some of these other guys, these young guys, those don't really stand out to me. Those are the moves that it's okay, that's usually how it goes, right? You're going to have Blake Henson and Amel Traore and Colin Castleton and these guys in the training camp too. Competitive. You want to kind of see young guys. You kind of use it as almost like a scouting thing, right? But to bring in a guy that is looked at as a player that should be on a roster, that's where things kind of start getting interesting, right? Well, they brought in a young guy in Valero, who you're okay, again, young guy, right? He was with the Lakers summer team a couple years ago, summer league team. He went undrafted. Lakers have had some interest in him for a couple years. He's in the G League for South Bay. Probably just, again, he's got good size, good length, young, one of the guys that they want to kind of look at to potentially develop, excellent three-point shooter, right? Cool. But then 12 hours later, you go and just waive him, right? It's really strange. Now, how could this tie into something grander? Well, again, if the Lakers are gearing up to pull off a trade, which I said even months ago, that I think if a trade happens, it's probably closer to training camp, right? Because as you get close to training camp, what starts to happen is teams go, I really don't want this guy on our team going into the season, right? So, our price is here, let's drop it here. Or, hey, Lakers, so we'll use Portland as an example, right? So the Portland Trailblazers, Jeremy Grant, right? Okay, right now it's 2 firsts, unprotected, and we're not budging. Right? It's what it was for months. Well, now we're getting closer to training camp. They have a lot of young guys that play the exact same position as Jeremy Grant, right? Can play both forward spots, right? Jeremy Grant just kind of is in the way for them. Also, you got guys like Cooper Flagg and literally the top 5 in this year's draft could probably all have been drafted number 1 in this previous draft, right? So again, it's if you were ever going to tank for a guy, like now would be the season, right? Because it's not just Cooper Flagg. There's several other guys, like Armel Traore's brother, right? Like is another guy, right? So again, like you have teams that are going to go, okay, well, we don't really want Jeremy Grant going into the season, into training camp, right? So Lakers are offering us 1 first. Let's just take the 1 first, right? Or maybe a first and 2 seconds or something like that. Cool, boom. Deal gets done, right? Now, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen, but if that was to happen, and they are in negotiations, and they are having those discussions, and they are maybe close to a deal, because they were already, based on reports, close to finalizing a deal already, and then Rob Pelinka supposedly backed out of it. How much of that is true, we don't know, right? Because we're obviously not in the room, but if they are working behind the scenes, working on a deal, because again, Rob Pelinka has said if he can get deals that he likes, that he'll take it, right? So if Portland is hitting him up and going, hey, we're getting close to training camp. All right, tell you what, let's try to work on this again, which is what I think will probably happen. I think you're going to start hearing some trade buzz, not just in the Laker front, but just the fronts, period, teams that are interested. You know, like the Knicks are a team looking for a center. I do think you're going to get some of this created buzz just because as we move closer to training camp, right? You're already kind of hearing, you know, Jonas Valanciunas, but that's like December 15th or whatever, right? But point is the Lakers are close to pulling off a deal, and it's a 3-for-1 deal like it would be for a Jeremy Grant. I'm not necessarily saying it is Jeremy Grant, just using him as an example, but again, let's use that, stick with that example. You're talking Rui Hachimura, Gabe Vincent, and a Christian Wood or a Cam Reddish, right? It's got to be like one of those guys. But there you go, 3-for-1 swap. Okay, you have to have at least 14, so you need to fill at least 1 roster spot. Okay, well, Jordan Goodwin is a guy that can come in and do that. You could bring in like a Blake Henson or something like that. Maybe the Lakers use Portland to dump another guy, right? Maybe they use Portland to dump not only a Cam Reddish, but maybe a Jackson Hayes or a Christian Wood or something like that, right? To where now they've cleared off enough salary to bring in maybe like a Blake Henson and a young guy. Well, also, if you are going to potentially have a roster spot or 2 open, you want to now start exploring not the young guys you know that aren't going to make the roster. You want to start exploring the guys that you do think will make the roster. So if the Lakers end up bringing in like a Fultz or something like that, right? One of these veteran guys that are, were playing last year and on a roster and are looking to be on a roster this year, that is actually a pretty big signal. Because again, Jordan Goodwin is a guy that, okay, makes sense. You want to get a good look at him. He makes sense for a competitive training camp, and he's a guy you can kind of keep on your radar. Get a good look, get a good feel, right? But outside of that, it's all young guys. I mean, most teams, period, across the board, teams tanking, teams contending, all of it, usually bring in young projects that they're interested in, and they want to kind of get a look during training camp, right? Because also those guys have something to prove, right? Those guys are working hard to try to make a roster and show that they belong in the league. So they're busting tail, right? So again, that's usually the norm. But when you start bringing in this guy and that guy, and it's like, okay, well, Lakers roster's full. The only way that they could clear, because they can't waive anybody, the only way that they could clear roster spots for like a Jordan Goodwin or like a Markelle Fultz or any of these guys, again, just using examples, right? Is by trade, right? They have to pull off some type of trade in order for that to work. If they don't pull off a trade, then all these guys they're working them out for no reason, really. Which is why you usually go with the young guys, because they're going to go to your G League and okay, I got this guy on my G League I'm really high on, right? Let's add a little more attention to him, maybe bring him up a couple times to get some workouts, whatever, right? Maybe we convert him to a 2-way, whatever, right? Because let's say the Lakers do bring in like Blake Henson, and let's say that Kyler's doing really good, right? So okay, let's go get him on a 2-way, right? There's flexibility, right? There's options there, but it's just it's odd that they sign this guy, and then literally not even 24 hours later, acquire waivers. Why? Usually, you're bringing somebody in to get a good look at. And look, he wasn't on a two-way. He's on the G League roster regardless. There's not really like a risk of losing him. And look, I mean, even if they didn't do that, like they could go and sign somebody else, like, or he could go sign with somebody else regardless. Like it's strange that that's the route that they would take to go and bring him in and then just waive him. Now, there are some like loopholes in like the G League and contracts, like to keep guys long term, right? And kind of basically keep teams at a distance, right? Be able to kind of like keep them under cap for the G League team and stuff. But like, again, why not just keep him on the training camp team, right? Again, like you could do the same thing and just keep him on that 10-day, let that 10-day expire. Now you're good, right? It's just, I don't know. It's odd. Now, again, maybe it's nothing. Maybe the Lakers just changed their mind, right? Like, the Lakers have done some odd things in the recent years, right? Lakers haven't really been a model of, like, great decision-making. So, but it's just, it's really odd that they would go from just nothing, like, oh, hey, we're going to bring this guy in a training camp, to like, oh, now we're not. Like, and you didn't even let it marinate, right? Like, you didn't, like, give it even a day, like a full day. Like training camp isn't tomorrow. We still have a few weeks out from training camp. So there's still time. They could have waived him, a month from now, or, not a month now, but like 2 weeks from now. And it would have been the same result. Why do this flip-flop? It's really odd to me. Again, maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's a big nothing burger and, tinfoil hat on, right? But it's worth at least talking and exploring. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, and I pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you think, like, yeah, this is really strange? Why did they do that? Do you think that maybe it's because a trade is on the horizon? Do you think, like, nah, like, Lakers aren't going to do anything? This is just that maybe somebody else is coming that they are more high on, right? Again, that could be the case. Maybe there's a free agent out there right now that they're like, hey, this guy would make some sense, right? Like more than him, so let's just pivot this way. Could be just as simple and straightforward as that. Maybe it has nothing to do with the trade. Maybe it has nothing to do with anything significant. Maybe somebody was available or is now available that they didn't know was available. Maybe an hour or several hours after you watch this video, because they got to wait for the waivers to go through, so it'll probably be tomorrow if anything happens. Maybe, tomorrow we end up getting news, oh, they signed this other guy instead in place, and there you go, right? It's just, again, it's very strange to me how this all played out. But anyway, again, how do you feel? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me not. It's me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.